recorded live.
Hello and welcome to the Virtualization Security Roundtable podcast episode number 83. Today is actually an extremely special podcast, and we'll tell you a little bit about that in a little bit after our introductions. Our panelists today are Eben Rodriguez, who consults with enterprises. Well, actually, he consults with eBay as a security architect there. I need to update my script. Michael Berman should be joining us later as the CTO of Catbird and pioneer industry leader in security and compliance for virtual environments. Boris Strongland is joining us from HighTrust, where he is the co-founder and currently VP of Advanced Products, with 20 years of experience in software development, enterprise systems, and security. And of course, myself, Edward Haletke, aka TechSciWill, in the VMware community forums, and just about everywhere else, and author of the book VMware vSphere and Virtual Infrastructure Security, Securing the Virtual Environment, as well as VMware ESX and ESXi in the Enterprise. Second edition, you can find both of those on Amazon. And our very special guest panelist this week is, and Eben, why don't you do the introductions?
Yeah, sure. Today we brought in an expert on technology and social networking concepts, and she's here to discuss cloud security. What's your name?
My name is Ronnie Rodriguez.
Ronnie Rodriguez. And she's going to be giving us some of the tips that we need to know to be secure in the cloud.
And Ronnie's our very special guest star because she's actually a teenager. And we've never actually had a teenager on our podcast or looked at the cloud and any type of security from that point of view. We've always been talking about how we would implement it, but let's talk to someone that uses it day in and day out without maybe even knowing it. So why don't we start, well, what type of applications do you use on the internet? And we're equating internet here with the cloud. So what applications do you use?
I use Facebook, like everybody else does. I use Pandora, different game websites, like I know there's addicting games and armor games. And then there are different like music websites like playlists. And most of them, you have to use a password, and you create an account.
So you have an email address also, right?
Yeah, and I think I have like 2 email addresses.
Okay.
Dude, that's more than I do.
And what devices do you use to access all that stuff?
There are a couple computers at home, and I have an iPhone, and I also have an electronic book reader, you know, the Nook. I could use internet at the school.
And it's mostly stuff with the web browser, or do you ever install apps, like on your phone or on different things?
Well, on my iPhone, I use a lot of apps, but then on computers, it's mostly, web browsers.
And a funny story for Ronnie is her. At one point, she needed a new phone, and I had let her borrow my Android phone. I thought it was really cool, but she really didn't like it. So we eventually, that didn't last very long. So we had to go back to an iPhone.
Well, it was a really big phone. You couldn't even fit it in your pocket or anything.
So what do you think about the security measures that you have to take? You mentioned before the podcast that you actually were recording it, that you also deal with a special section of that you have to deal with for school.
Oh yeah, what's that school system?
For our school, everybody in our school has, I think it's like since I was in elementary school till now, in middle school, we've had student lockers where they'd give us like our IDs, right? And then we'd have a password, and we just log in. And then whenever we had to do like a keynote presentation or look up stuff for school and put different photos in our account, because the computers that they use, they would like, I guess they were called clean computers. Like every time you put something on the desktop, once you turned it off, it would erase. So we used these accounts to save all of our.
So it's kind of like a Dropbox, but for schools.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So you put your homework assignments and things like that in it.
Can your teachers see what you put in there?
I think whenever we had to give our like reports to our teachers, we'd have to put it into a certain file, like they had.
Like a folder?
I think it was like some type of disk that they had on every computer's menu.
Oh, okay.
And then you'd have to drag it onto there.
So is there some expectation of privacy that what you put in there, if it was personal, the teachers or nobody else would be able to see it?
Well, let's ask a different question even, and that is, do you expect anything you put out on Facebook or out into the school repository or onto these games to be private between you and whoever the target is?
You know, I've never really thought about that. I guess I never really put anything like really important on any of those websites.
Okay.
It's mostly just talking to friends about like hanging out or what happened at school. And with other websites, I usually don't do anything like personal. I mean, I guess email. I don't even really use email for personal uses anymore. It's more like to get Facebook updates or different stores. They send you updates if you have like what's it called?
Like a profile.
So if you're talking to your best friend on Facebook, or if you're talking to your best friend on one of these games, or using even your iPhone to send a text message, do you expect those conversations to be private? In other words, are the only ones that should be able to read that?
Yeah.
Like there's stuff you put on there you wouldn't want your parents to see, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how go on, Boris?
Oh, I just had a question. So you mentioned, Ronnie, that you use a bunch of sites that require passwords. So how do you deal with multiple passwords? Do you remember them? Do you use the same password all over? I know it's a problem for me, so I wonder how you solve it.
Most of them are the same password and sometimes different usernames. But, yeah, most of them are the same password. I think, like, only a couple have different passwords. But
so,
it's the same thing with a couple other numbers added to the end of it.
I see. So, so you're not using one of those applications like on the iPhone where you can store multiple passwords and retrieve them, sort of like a password vault?
No, I don't think I've actually ever written them down anywhere, except maybe on a piece of paper, but that always gets lost.
Have you ever forgotten a password and had to retrieve it?
Yeah, a bunch of times. Okay. Oh, also another account that I have is, for Starbucks, right? You can create an account and then, put your card on there. And I think I forgot that password a couple of times. So they had to, send me an email. And I was kind of wondering, how do those work, Like, if you forget your password, all you do is, enter in your username, and then they reset the password.
That's because what they do is they know when you registered it that there's a email address associated with that username. So what they're doing is saying, hey, we reset your password. We know who your username is, email address. We're going to mail you a confirmation link that you would then click on to confirm that you were the one that set that password.
All right.
So they already know some information about you because when you registered it, you put that username, that email address in there. So if your email address ever changes, you need to remember your password so that you can change it up there as well.
That's interesting. You brought up a financial application like Starbucks. Is that a physical card you use, or do you use your phone?
Whenever I go to Starbucks, I use my phone.
So it's got the barcode on the phone. It's an app.
Yeah.
You can check your balance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost real cloud coffee. I heard rumors of this.
People do attack that system by compromising your account and then causing the password reset.
Exactly, because they've actually compromised your account, changed the password on you. Changed the email address on you, and then they get the verification.
Well, no, actually, I was saying is normally what they do. For instance, there was this backdoor in Hotmail for a while, and so you would compromise someone's Hotmail account, and then you could reset, cause the reset email to be sent to you at Hotmail, right? So that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good reset feature. And then the other reset feature that isn't good is the one where, they ask you questions about yourself. And numerous people have shown that you can get that information from Facebook and LinkedIn and other sources and guess the password reset questions.
Yeah, for those, I usually put something random that I wouldn't even say, and then it's actually pretty easy to remember for the questions, like the personal questions. Like, what was your first dog? I would put, like, some random name that I, found in a dictionary or something.
It's not your real dog's name.
No.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. I recommend to people that they lie to those questions.
Actually, treat them as other phrases.
Yeah, but if you lie, it's difficult to remember. Remember, it's
but you could. I'm suspecting I know what she's doing. It's probably something similar to what I'm doing. At the risk of leaking some of my reset questions, I'll say, my first pet's name was Godzilla, and I'm never going to forget that that's what I used for pet's name. So
now we know you used what was the name of the big the moth?
Barney.
Well,
that's what I'm saying, right? It could be Mothra, maybe it's some other. I'm saying you can pick something you won't forget.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell. It's probably most secure to tell a different lie to everybody, but you don't actually have to do that. You can have a couple of lies you switch between.
Yeah, I actually treat them as passphrases and just add more and more passphrases of things I'll never forget. That since they're 32 characters or greater in length, there are phrases that I know that happened in my life point in time in my life that may be in a combination of events, not just one, and most people don't know them.
So I'm curious about the applications that you choose, because some you like and some you probably tried and don't like. Has there ever been a situation where there's too much security, or it's too complicated to get signed up or something, or is that really not an issue?
No, I think I don't think there's ever been too much security. I know I have faked my age on a couple of websites, but other than that, that's it.
Oh my God! You violated the terms of service. Isn't that a federal crime now? Wasn't I reading an article about that?
Have you ever used Google Plus or some of the other social media like MySpace or something? Or
never used MySpace. I think except to see someone's music.
She's too hip for that. Come on. What kind of question was that?
It's a probing father.
Yeah. I was going to say she's probably not old enough to use MySpace. Ethan, you're showing your age.
I do use Twitter, and there's Skype, and then there's this one app that some of my friends have been into. It's called Box. It's supposed to be a sort of texting app, right? It's free, but you could also send little recordings of yourself.
So all these apps require a login, and you identify yourself. Or have you noticed that some of them allow you to use your Facebook ID to sign into them?
Yeah, a lot of apps they use the Facebook one, but I'm not supposed to use any applications on Facebook. I only use a couple, and those are photo apps, I think. But yeah, most of the time, whenever an app asks me to log in with Facebook, I don't use it.
You make up a separate account?
Yeah, because Mom told me that whenever you sign up for an app, and they totally tell you too, they can access all your basic information and post stuff to your wall, and that's just annoying.
Yeah.
Oh, let me. You know what? That sounded really good. So let me dig into that. So what you're basically saying, you know what I mean by a sock puppet, right?
A sock puppet?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you create a sock puppet account, and then you use that puppet for these apps, so that the apps are just harvesting your puppet data, not your real data.
Oh. So is this? I see what you're saying. So you could have a second Facebook account. You're saying?
Because even you can have as many as you want to have. You can have one per app. The same thing with Twitter. You could have as many as you want for Twitter.
But then you might as well just kind of use an email address that kind of. Oh, so can those all share the same email address? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how you do that or what the advantage would be.
Well, I think
you get multiples for the same email address.
But I'm sorry. I came in a little late. I'm sorry, this is Eben's daughter I've picked up?
Yeah.
We have
Okay.
very.
And what's her name?
This is Veronica. She's our special guest.
She's an expert, man. So, Veronica, did I hear you right? You have a fake Facebook account, and you're using that for these app registrations. Is that right?
No, I actually don't do that.
Oh, okay.
That sounds like a really good idea. We hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a honeypot for apps on Facebook.
What she was saying was that we've indicated that all these different games and other apps that you get invited to on Facebook have a privacy policy, and it tells you when you say, like, your friend sends you, say, join this app, and it's an application invitation. If you read that, which we've actually encouraged her to read it, it tells you it's going to have access to your wall, to post things on your wall and read your personal contacts and all this kind of stuff. And so she doesn't do that. And if she wants to play that game or use that other tool, like a music tool maybe, she'll log in without using her Facebook account to that app using her email address. Is that right?
Gotcha.
So then it doesn't have the permission to access her Facebook profile.
Interesting.
I
So, and I asked this question earlier about the expectation about privacy, and the reason why I asked about that, Veronica, is that everything you put on Facebook, regardless of how you try to protect it, really is not private. Those conversations that you're having with your friends on Twitter and texting and on Facebook, anybody and their uncle can read those.
Anybody and their uncle who's willing to make the effort, yes.
Exactly. It does take a little bit of effort.
So some people have said that Google Plus, I think that's the name of it, is like Google's Facebook, is supposedly better because you have more control, or it's easier to have more control over who you share things with. When you post a picture, you have to choose friends from school, family, or people in San Jose, or whatever.
Well, Facebook has added a similar feature, and I would say that Google's most recent term of service, and I'm sure you're aware of some of the outrage about it, you are absolutely sharing everything with Google, and Google makes no, bones about this. They make it very clear that they are using everything you post to make their advertising more effective.
Exactly. So
but they've been doing that with Gmail forever, and people don't seem to object, right?
Well, you're right. You're right about that. But they're adding that. They're doing that for Google Plus. But no, this is the most recent thing. And I actually intentionally went in, and they had a window where you could delete all of your search history. In the new terms of service, what they've done is they've harnessed their whole engine, and I'll say harmonized their data protection policy across Gmail, across Google Plus, and if you're like me, and you leave yourself logged in, all of your Google searches are attached to your ID as well.
Yep.
And that wasn't the case a month ago.
And that's even YouTube. What you look at on YouTube is in there too.
Correct.
Yeah, so they're harnessing all of that data to make advertising towards you or anybody that towards you, particularly to you, more effective. So even the search results that get returned are actually harmonized with that data. So if you're looking for a Corvette, for example, or a game, or something, the latest the nearest ice cream parlor, and you do that often, your searches are going to show those regardless of what you search for in a lot of cases.
Well, luckily they have a toggle for this, because otherwise it would make me totally insane. So when you do a Google search, and for instance, I have one on my screen right now, and it says, 10 personal results. But over to the right, there's two little images, one of a person and one of the world. And if I click the world, it basically recomputes the search without my personal preferences. And I'm often doing that because I don't want you to tell me about what I already know about, right? Give me a raw search. And so I'm glad they at least did that much. Otherwise, a lot of my search results would be completely pointless. I would be, staying within the garden I'm already familiar with.
Well, and then we have I mean, Facebook itself has made no bones. That's the way they make money, is to do that. They sell those search results and those ads to pinpoint them so that they can convert them to sales. Because the issue with web advertisement is it's effectively a numbers game. The more impressions, the greater the percentage results. So, but the results are always around no more than 2%. So, click-throughs all the way through. And of those 2%, you may actually only get 0.5% that actually buy something, or even less. So what you're doing is trying to get as much in front of people that says, hey, we know we're looking for this. You know you're looking for this. Here, go buy it. And it's just a conversion number game. The reason why I know this is actually I have a friend of mine who that's his business. And the more impressions, the more numbers he can get, the better his results and the better his payday. And that's all he's trying to do. And Facebook and Google use all that information for that, including your private messages.
Within the walled garden, that's absolutely true. I mean, and there's like this little spat going on between Google and Facebook because Facebook used to allow an API so that Google could index a lot of that material. You know, that got closed, I want to say a year and a half ago. And now your posts to Facebook are available to the Facebook platform, but they're not available to Google anymore. And that's created, in fact, that's important in the Facebook IPO because they can say we have, 750 million or maybe it's 1 billion people now on Facebook posting everything they like, everything they don't like, all these conversations. We're harvesting that for advertising purposes. Your ads on Facebook will be even more effective than your ads on Google. And that's the real threat to Google's chokehold on advertising is that Facebook has created this walled garden that only they can harvest.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Couldn't Google harvest it if they paid money or something? Or it's kind of like two different worlds.
Well, they could always license it, but I think Facebook, in the decision to go public and do what they're doing, have no choice. This is how they're going to make this is how they're saying they're going to make a fortune and justify their $100 billion valuation.
Right.
That we have all this data, and we're the only people with this data. That's important.
They've actually made a fortune based just on that already.
Yeah, they're a profitable company. Yes, they are already a very, very, very profitable company.
So Facebook in some ways has out-Googled Google. They're all both doing pretty much the same thing. But back on topic. So use Facebook in that, but how do you feel about the fact that this stuff is used for other purposes, Ronnie?
Well, I know that on Facebook, I don't put anything like truly personal, but I do on text messages. That's for sure.
Now, text messages are a lot harder to get a hold of. It requires.
Well, no. Let's ask that. Let's drill into that, Veronica. So when you say text message, what is your application for sending and receiving those text messages?
I guess the one that comes with the phone. It's like you have to pay for it.
Okay, those are the true SMS messages. Yeah, that's private between you, your friend, and the telephone company.
Yeah.
And anybody with a big enough antenna.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You go to DEF CON, you go to Black
I know.
Hat,
the carrier encryption is pretty good. People have
you do a text message, it's going to appear somewhere.
They have to be nearby. I mean, the NSA can do it, but
And actually, talking about the NSA being able to do it, I said someone with a big enough antenna that's within in the same coffee shop you're texting from can do it.
Well, no, but the NSA does it from space, so that's what makes sense.
I understand that, but let's say the NSA. But how do you feel about the NSA backing up all of your email from Google?
Well, if they had a restoration service, I would be very happy about it.
They don't.
That would be a very peculiar restoration service.
Yeah.
They have a lot of redacted stuff in it. Sorry, we're blackmarking that.
But I have a question. Maybe you know the answer. So with today's phones, I mean, all the communications are actually digital. It's all spread spectrum, either GSM or CDMA, and presumably they're encrypted from your phone to the base station, and then the base station decrypts it and sends it along the backbone to the to the distribution hub and so on. So they get decrypted only at the base station. So between the phone and the base station, they should be encrypted. So it should not be. It's easy to pick up with the radio, but they're still encrypted. Isn't that correct?
Well, it's also most phones are frequency hopping as well. They don't always send on the same frequency.
Exactly.
No, but what Ed is pointing out is that there are people who GSM has been cracked. So
yes.
So it's not like cracking web. It's harder, but it's been done, and you can. I think it's down to around $2,500 worth of equipment now. But the main problem is
those people who want to do it, they will.
Yeah, the problem is, and this is a sort of a functional fact of our industry, right? If you come up with an encryption standard, so let's say at the time CDMA or GSM or the different encryption standards were come up with, they were superb, and I have no reason to believe that they weren't. But they were superb 20 years ago. That's when these encryption technologies were first developed. And they have remained the same for 20 years. Unfortunately, in that 20 years, computers have become, 2 to the 10th more powerful. And so
they're getting more powerful every day.
And every year they're another factor of 2 more powerful. And people came up with rainbow tables. For you know what rainbow tables are, right?
Not really.
Let me explain this in a second. Okay, so rainbow tables. So let's say you have an encryption space of possible keys. And you can basically, because storage has become so cheap, you can pre-compute seeds for the cipher space ahead of time. In some cases, you can, depending on the nature of the cipher, you can actually pre-compute the crypto key results. And so basically, the decryption becomes a simple table lookup into an array of data. Now, in 20 years ago, someone would say, well, you can't do that because you would have to have 100 terabytes of storage to create a rainbow table for our crypto space. Well, the problem is 100 terabytes of storage is now nothing. So you're able to create this rainbow. It's called a rainbow table. I don't know. Actually, I don't even know why it's called a rainbow table. Ed, do you know why it's called rainbow? Anyway.
I don't know, but I do know
that Wikipedia article about that.
But the rainbow tables are so powerful for 2 reasons. One is people generally use short passwords. And on Windows systems, which was originally the rainbow tables were attacking, passwords less than 16 characters were actually less than 17 characters were stored into 8-character chunks, and each one was encrypted separately. So all you were really doing was breaking 8 characters. So all they did for the rainbow tables was build up everything on the keyboard in 8 characters, just run through it, cycle through it, and mathematically and programmatically for everything on the keyboard. So effectively they just had to do it once for 8 characters, and then they can apply it to both of those segments. And the interesting thing is that a friend of mine did this, produced a rainbow table, but only what you could see on the keyboard. And it took 30 days to produce that on a laptop, and this was, 10 years ago. And it took up 80 gig of space.
Yeah, but once produced, you could then crack any key in linear time.
As long as you could get the password out in its encrypted form, you could then break any key. Well, because you could just
look it up. You could take the encrypted password, not even decrypting it, look it up in your table and get the result. So it's a linear lookup.
And not only that, at that time when rainbow tables started, there is actually extremely easy ways to extract window password files, the SAM files, all those detail-y things that people don't normally protect were easy to grab.
Because people thought they were encrypted, right? I mean, that's the problem. And then they did it for DES, and then they've done it for
MD5.
MD5, and they did it. I believe they've done it for the GSM and the CDMA. There's a similar technology. I'm a little off my my area of expertise now.
They've also done it for SHA-1 and SHA-256 for certain subsets of the keyboard space. Now, I do know that for the 8-character, they've actually even gotten the keys you can't see, and it's all up on rainbowtable.org. Or, I mean, you can actually upload a table and download a table.
Well, I know somebody did a demonstration against, I think it was WPA, where they used Amazon storage service to temporarily store the rainbow table.
Yeah. So, given that information, I just have a question for Ronnie. How do you feel about things like that? Is it a big worry for you and your friends?
They are concerned. I was asking her while you guys were talking about protecting your data, basically, so people can't see it. And she said more than anything, if it's something that is secure, they don't want people to see. They pretty much all agree, don't post it on Facebook or online site and to use text. And then they had some protections around the text messages. So what do you and your friends do when you're sending text messages back and forth to have kind of like secret stuff you don't want other people to see?
Well, a lot of the private stuff that they send between texts, mostly who they want to keep it from are, like adults, parents, right? People who get them in trouble or something, right? Because it's never anything really, like, important-wise, like, can't, like, access any of their accounts, like, for money or anything. It's usually just, normal everyday drama. But, yeah, they usually hide it from their parents. So, a lot of my friends, what they do, because they complain about how, like, their parents, they can, like, read all their messages, right? And some parents even, like, just take their phones and look through their messages, right? So they'll delete any, like, personal messages that they send out.
So do they delete them right away after they read it?
Some of them, yeah. And then sometimes they just delete the messages because some phones, they don't have, like, the space to keep all the messages.
So, guys, on the phone, is that a safe tactic, you think?
No.
Obviously, the person sending the message still has it on their phone, so you have to delete it both places, really. And how can you
And you actually need to do a destructive delete, which the phones don't do. They just delete the reference to it. You can easily get a kit that will download everything off a phone in less than 30 seconds. Even old messages.
Well, there was a bug. I don't know if they fixed it in the iPhone where you could, when you plug in the iPhone to iTunes, you could recover all that data.
Recover it. So, do you know about software updates, Veronica?
Yeah.
Do you ever get messages that saying something needs to be updated, and what do you guys do about that?
Like it usually says, can update this software now or later, or just like cancel it, right?
Right.
And, usually, like on the iPhone, you don't get those messages a lot. So whenever it happens, I just click, like download it.
Are your friends pretty good about that too?
I don't know.
Do you guys talk about it, or
no?
It's not something you talk about, right? We sit around and talk about it all the time.
It sounds like boring for someone of Veronica's age.
Yeah, so most people, I think it's safe to say you don't think about security and stuff like that on a daily basis when you're using the technology. You want it to be in business.
But the one thing I was going to offer, of some benefit here is that in a lot of the cases, so some of these really private disclosures about people and their phones, it's actually a betrayal, right? So what happens is a friend or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever gets angry at you for whatever reason and then uses that private material that you've exchanged intentionally to hurt.
Yeah, we were talking about, they call that cyberbullying, kind of, is one of the topics where that happens.
That's not kind of, that is cyberbullying.
Well, it is what it is, and, it's always happened. But I'm just saying it, movie stars fall into this category too. It's happened.
Politicians.
Exactly.
Actually, anybody in any position of anybody. It doesn't
well, the problem
matter if
is
it's a movie star or not. It's the daily. How'd you put that, Ronnie? The daily drama.
Yeah.
And that's
but the
really
difference
what it is. Anybody that's experiencing daily drama in their life.
The difference is the daily drama is being recorded. I mean, when I was young, which was, Ronnie, this was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
When I was young and I had a confidence with a friend, that was because he and I were in the back of the, high school parking lot smoking, right? It wasn't being recorded.
True.
You know what I'm saying? And now when we have confidences with people, even though the person we're having a confidence with, that we can trust them and they're not going to betray us, whether we want it to or not, our technology is recording these things all the time.
That's a good point.
And I think that's up the ante.
Text messages kind of seems like it'd be pretty simple to just delete them. But the other thing I've seen other people do, I don't know if Ronnie does it, but I know I've seen her friends do it. They video chat with each other.
Yeah.
And that is also now being really easy to record. And that's probably harder to cover up afterwards, too, because those files are pretty big, and they can be stored on the cloud or on your laptop or on your phone. So you can send them to people.
You don't put anything you don't use any of the technology that's out there today if you don't want it to appear 10 years later, because that's what's going to happen.
I guess basically what I usually think, like whenever I have a personal conversation with my friend, is nobody's going to care what I say. It's never usually anything that'll get anybody angry or upset, or nothing like illegal or anything. It's usually just, like I said, everyday drama. I just figured no one will really care enough to hack into it. If somebody does get angry at me, that's like one of the last things they would do, because most of the people that I talk to personally, we see each other every day, and so there's a lot of more stuff that people do besides hack into their account.
But a lot of times it seems like your daily drama kind of comes and goes, but if it was recorded, that makes it more permanent, and it kind of changes.
Yeah, I mean, Ronnie, think about it. If you ever get into politics, say 20 years from now, you're running for the president of the United States, somebody, you can bet on it, somebody will go through all of your recorded information dating back 20 or 30 years. And then they can put it, take it out of context and quote it in some magazine, and, it goes from there.
Not only that, let's put a definition of cyberbullying, and so that we have one to work with. And it's not just the intentional stuff. I mean, as Ronnie said, there's the intentional, do bad things. But it's also not only the intent of which it was done, but the intent in which the receiver thought it was done.
Well, but there's also stuff we don't even know, right? I mean, not to. So one of the disclosures that hit, I forget who it was. I'm just going to make this up. Let's say it was Paris Hilton. I do remember it was Verizon, and it had nothing to do with whether, she deleted her text or deleted, any images she took with the phone. The problem was that Verizon, as a service, was storing the information on their server.
Are you sure it wasn't the Sidekick thing?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
probably.
So the hacker got into her stuff through Verizon. So, even if Paris Hilton and Paris Hilton's security team were doing everything right, they weren't aware of the fact that this stuff was being stored on Verizon's server.
That's right. And Veronica was telling me about the phone thing now that they got set up with iCloud, where every picture you take is automatically uploaded to
That's
the cloud.
Exactly right. It's the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of my friends use the cloud for, safety measures. I had one of my friends recently, I guess he and his friends, because this happens to me a lot too, they try to guess his password, right? They'll, pretend to steal his phone, right? But he's, right there. Right? And they'll take his phone and they'll try and guess, all these passwords.
Like the PIN to unlock it?
Yeah, and I once had my phone, locked for, an entire hour because my friends tried to guess my password.
They put it in wrong too many times.
Yeah, and my friend, they put it in wrong so many times that it was, it was locked for, I forgot how long.
You can set it to where it'll delete everything.
Yeah. But he had to get his phone reset in order to log back into it.
Well, here, Ronnie, I'm going to give you a pro tip, okay? next time you want to crack a friend's password, especially if they have a touch interface like the iPhone, go and hold it up to the light, and you can tilt the screen, and you can see where they touch their finger, and the 4 digits or where they ever use their PIN will stand out for you in the right light at the right tilt.
Not only
of the
that,
phone.
you could also use even any type of powder too.
She's looking at her phone right now.
You can do the fingerprint approach as well.
Yeah. But I've noticed on my own phone, if I hold it up to the light, I can go, oh yeah, that is my password. The 4 digits. You don't know what the order is. You can see which 4 you use, right?
So the better idea is to go and force any number digit passwords, which you can do on any iPhone and any Android.
Oh, you can turn in a word.
You could make them at least 10, and so you're hitting every key.
Yeah.
Well, there's a passphrase that works pretty good too. So instead of numbers, you put in a word.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you do one big enough that you're hitting every key at least once or twice.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good tip. Why don't phone vendors make that mandatory? It seems like the default is still to not require a password. How do you guys feel about that?
Because people want to be able to make a phone call.
They don't want the tech support problem.
Yeah, that's right. They want to be able to make a phone call, hit a button, make a phone call, or be able to type in their password with one hand so they can make a phone call.
Yeah, this is why ESX ships with an insecure self-signed certificate.
Yeah, convenience versus security. By the way, the latest Android is supposed to have this biometric feature where it can recognize your face. The front-facing camera would take a picture automatically and compare it with the stored picture. Has anybody used it?
Can it tell the difference between different shades of brown?
God forbid you grow a beard or you get sick and your eyes are all blotchy and your face is blown up. Won't work.
Yeah, I don't know how good it is. Today face recognition algorithms are actually pretty good. They don't actually work on superficial features like the color of your eyes. They look at some immutable elements of your face. The distances between, say, your pupils, the distance between the tip of your nose and the chin. Those sort of things. There's a lot of metrics there.
The geometry algorithms are much more effective.
Yes.
Yep.
So, Ronnie, would you want a phone? Here's a big question. Do you want a phone that you're required to look at, type in a PIN, and then shake in some random gesture? That's your own private gesture?
I think I'm good with just the password. Although sometimes it does get in the way, for the locking, right? And I never do that thing where you can set it so that it's somebody guesses too many times, it'll erase all their data, right?
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. That would be a pain, especially in a different group of friends, right? Your phone will be getting erased all the time.
Yeah.
Like a denial of service attack.
Well, it's a good way not to actually have any private data on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I never do anything private on my phone.
Did you guys see the recent, rumored to attack out of China? I think it was targeting Android, but it gives them remote control on the Android to turn on the camera, to turn on the microphone.
They've already had that on the iPhone a while back.
Well, this is like the latest and greatest because it was you could activate it with an SMS message. It was controllable by SMS.
Thing. That's the same SMS. It may be similar to the one that actually attacked the iPhone about a year ago. It would do the exact same thing.
I thought the one on the iPhone only worked were unlocked, though.
It was a special SMS message.
Right, but I think you had to be an unlocked iPhone for that to work.
I think so.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get text messages from phone numbers that I don't recognize and that aren't even in my address book.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. And most of the time, they're just some of my friends. I'll get a text message saying, "Hey," right, and I'll just reply back, "Who is this?" And usually it'll be, one of my friends using somebody else's phone or something. And then other times it's an ad for a phone service that I don't even use, right? And I think one time I got text message saying, some big company is letting 5,000 people test the latest iPad, right? Text back, blah, and you could be the one to try it, right?
Yeah.
And I always just delete those.
Good idea. But I'd also put your phone on the global do not call list.
Yeah, but that doesn't help against the hackers. They'll still text you.
It doesn't, but it helps against anything that you don't really want that's coming through legitimate channels.
Yeah. Now, Ronnie, has your dad ever explained to you the policy about too good to be true?
No.
Even has homework.
If it sounds too good to be true, it must not be true.
Oh, that's just common sense.
All right.
Woo-hoo.
Good for you.
Michael, I think Ronnie's generation knows more about security and things like that.
I'm more hopeful because my sister got nailed by that.
Than anybody older than her.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing up in Silicon Valley has been a bit of a benefit for some of that.
Yeah.
So what kind of problems or concerns do you think there are for security or privacy between your friends? Is there things that the industry needs to be doing better? Make it easier to use, or make it more easy to understand, or what?
I'd say the only thing really is because I've never really had any problems with security. I guess the only thing would be how some apps you sign in once, you make an account on an application on your phone, and you'll sign in, and then you can press the home button and see main screen, and then you can just press the app again and you get right in.
You don't have to sign in.
You don't have to sign in again.
Mm-hmm.
Unless your password gets reset.
So it kind of keeps you logged in forever. I think Facebook's like that.
Yeah, Facebook, Netflix, Twitter does that, Skype, almost every application does that.
Yeah, you have to be, my wife is really excellent about that. Whenever she uses Facebook, she uses it and then logs out, so she has to log in again. There's a risk there if you leave your phone unlocked or someone gets your phone. There'll be all those applications where you don't have to re-enter your password. They're just going to be on.
That's a good point. So do you know?
So what my wife does in that situation, she actually goes in, double clicks, so it brings up that thing, and then just kills all the apps in the bottom.
Oh yeah, that's
she does this regularly, almost every time throughout the day. She's doing it multiple times because she'll start something, forget about it, double click, and get rid of it. It's really kind of funny. And I actually do the same thing. I actually keep no apps in the background if I can help it.
Yeah,
right. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I only keep them in the background if I'm going back and forth to them for a short amount of time. But what a lot of people do, I guess it's kind of almost customary. When you're hanging out with your friend, you'll let them we'll swap phones, right? Because we all know our own passwords. I know one of my best friends, we know each other's passwords, everything. I think we even made, email accounts together for, a YouTube thing, so we could, know our own emails. But what we'll do is we'll, give each other our phones, and what a lot of people do is they'll be, they'll go onto your Facebook, right, and you've been hacked by, Ronnie or something. And, it's just you see that a lot on Facebook, and it's not a big deal because you know that the person let them do that. And sometimes they'll be oh, you shouldn't have left your Facebook logged in or something.
That's terrible.
Yeah, but they never post anything. I think the most people will do is go oh, so-and-so, themselves is awesome. And
so why do you guys share phones? Is it because maybe you forgot yours, your battery's low or something like that? You just need to borrow somebody else's phone real quick?
Nah, it's never for anything useful. It's just fun.
Is it kind of risky behavior in a way? I want to see what's on your phone, or
I don't know.
I guess in somebody else's business.
For me, it's kind of if somebody lets you use their phone, it's a trust thing.
Right.
you're good friends with them. You know, you share phones.
I heard about this new idea for phones. I don't know. Tell me what you think, if this would be a good idea or not. But they call it virtualization, where you could have like a different phone and profile inside. So you could, like right now it's yours, and say you wanted to switch the profile, you could make it like a guest profile. And they wouldn't have access to your information, but they could still do basic things that you allow them to do.
Like on laptops and computers?
Yeah, kind of like that, but would that be a good idea?
Login. Yeah.
I kind of like that idea. I mean, I know on the iPhone they have the emergency phone, right? And I've actually tried it a couple times, you know, call my mom or something, you know, on the emergency thing. But I'm pretty sure the only number that works is 911.
Yeah, you can configure that, though. So
you can have one number plus 911, I thought.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
So you'll have to set
look
that
into
up.
The settings.
Right. But it'd be great if you had a guest mode where you could let somebody borrow your phone to make a phone call to their mom that you didn't know the number, and they wouldn't have access to your Facebook or other apps that were on there.
Yeah, well, I'll share my billion-dollar mobile app idea with you guys, because I know it's just you listening. And this is that the one more generation of mobile device will have more than enough power for virtualization. And so, obviously, from my angle, right, you should be able to have, like, your VM and maybe a guest VM for your guests and maybe even yet another interface where you might do your banking apps, right? But we're going to be able to have this kind of capability because the phones are going to have more than enough local storage and processing power for true isolation. You know, we just have to get the manufacturers just have to bother to do it. But the power is there.
Guess what? In the last two VM Worlds, I saw more or less the identical demo of VMware actually showing a guest hypervisor on an Android phone to do precisely what you described. It's a VM, and it has its own phone number. Interestingly enough, you know, totally different profile, total isolation through the hypervisor, so the VM doesn't have access to the main phone data and so on. They do it from the point of view of having a corporate and a private phone all on the same device, and it's you know, it's very promising. But they've been demoing it for several years now, and there's no product. I don't know why.
Because they have to get AT&T and Verizon and anybody else to want to do it, right? It's not, you know, it's not under, unless Google, right, makes like the next version of Android that by default. You know, why would Samsung or HTC or the others make their lives more complicated in order to make the phones more secure? It's going back to that convenience issue that you mentioned earlier. It's like people have to either demand it from the carrier, or the carrier just has to realize it's good business. I don't know.
Well, it's even more than that. It ends up being that. I mean, you have to. I think that it's the demand. I think people don't think it's good business because it makes the phone more expensive. Phone prices are already fairly astronomical, and they're
compared to but you know,
for business, I think that sounds great, but I think for the private life, not quite yet.
Well, it helps people if you have to have a corporate phone and you want to keep your personal phone. A lot of people are just carrying two devices, which is a drag. So that would be a big benefit if you could combine two devices in one. And it would seem that corporations would love it because they would be assured that they can maintain and control security on those devices.
So
there's a lot of benefits.
Hey, can I ask one more question about social or teenager cloud computing use? What about location tracking? I wonder if that hasn't come up at all, and I'm wondering if there's any thoughts on that.
Well, as a parent, I track my children.
You have that feature turned on. Do you use that with your friends, the Find Me feature, where you can see where they are?
None of my friends have it, I don't think. But I know that my own parents have. They have that Find Me app, right? Mm-hmm. And they follow my location.
So some people think that should be enabled by default in case a phone is stolen or lost. What do you think? You think that'd be a good idea?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. I mean, if you lose your phone, it'd be nice to find it again, right?
And my problem is I lose the phone in my house, and the resolution isn't good enough for that.
Then you can call yourself, you hear the ring.
I know.
So we're at the end of our hour, and I'd like to thank Veronica for joining us. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you for having me here.
It was extremely intriguing, actually. But I have we got to do a final word, and that I have a particular question for the other people that is unrelated to cloud security, not directly or unrelated to teenagers' use of it. Eben, the code leak from VMware, the VMware hypervisor, and the latest set of patches that seemingly have come from that recent code leak. What's your thoughts? Good, bad, ugly? What do you have to do?
Yeah. Well, of course, I'm going to say ugly, but it's bound to happen. Every company has weaknesses. For whatever reason, there's going to be weaknesses. And whether, like we were talking about encryption and password strength, that nothing is unbreakable, right? So you just need to have a patching policy, and there should be a defense in depth strategy that would prevent that whatever vulnerability was exposed from being taken advantage of. You can't just rely on a single layer of defense.
Okay, Boris? Same question.
Well, are you asking about the VMware leak or in general?
The VMware code leak and the latest set of patches that just came out today that are apparently a set of patches that look like they're geared towards that code leak because they reference it.
Yeah, well, I think it was bound to happen, right? I mean, it happens just about with every major company. Sooner or later, some of all the code leaks. Remember, Symantec had their antivirus code leaked. And
where it was even worse. Remember, that was the one where it had the remote execution backdoor. No authentication required.
Okay.
Go ahead, Boris. I don't mean to step on what you're saying.
No. So it's bound to happen. There's no cure against it. The only thing you can do is be vigilant and be sure to patch it up and have additional defenses, as Eben mentioned. No single security measure will be enough. The only hope is to have a lot of them.
Okay. Unfortunately, this is the defense in depth story, which we, with more often than not, we end up getting into on these calls. So I can't. I have to agree. I agree with Eben. I agree with Boris. Symantec had a backdoor into PC Anywhere for 5 or 6 years, and it was only after their code was stolen that they patched it.
Yeah, that was really bad. I agree.
Yeah, that was really bad. Similarly, we've learned about a backdoor into industrial control systems, which is only being patched now. In a way, this ESX thing is minimal by comparison. I think the point I would make here, and I sound a little overly passionate, but the point I'll make here is the Chinese didn't steal ESX 2.0. They stole, or didn't just steal 2.0. The Chinese, giving them credit, stole 3, they stole 4, and they've probably stolen the source code to ESX 5.
Well, wait a second. There was a reply to that, and many governments actually require that you give them the source code to do business with them.
Yeah, well, it turns out that Microsoft gave the Chinese the source code. Yes, exactly.
Wait.
Was just
by law, we had to give VMware and others had to give their source code to the Chinese government in order to have whatever contract it was approved. But if the Chinese government had some weak controls and somebody there compromised their security, then that's a different story. So, like I said, this type of stuff is inevitable, and we're not pointing fingers at VMware or the Chinese government or whoever.
Well, no, actually, I'm not pointing fingers at VMware. I am pointing the finger at the Chinese government.
Right.
So I'm just saying, so you've given your source code to the Chinese government, whether you've done it intentionally or because they've hacked your network. And let's just be brutally honest here, it could have happened either way.
Yeah, and I'm saying it's not a problem with the company or the product per se, but we're just going to agree that this happens sometimes.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, let me finish my thought. Hang on, guys. I'm not trying to attack VMware here. What I'm trying to say is that then a motivated individual within that entity, within the foreign government, can peruse the source code at their leisure, find the holes. Right? This is the easiest way to find 0 days. So
when we talk about this problem in a general sense, ESX is secure, no one has hacked ESX, that's only true in a very rough sort of way. Clearly, it would be impossible for VMware to write perfect code, no matter how hard they try, and they have great coding systems and they have a great patch management system, and I laud them on everything they do. But I'm just saying the Chinese right now probably have a dozen 0 days against ESX. How could they not, right, if they want to? So
let's not just blame the Chinese. It's any government that has access to the code.
Exactly. This is Windows 7 because Microsoft had to do the exact same thing. So it really, when we, as architects, and this is I think what Boris was saying, and this is what I'm really agreeing with, is if you assume the platform is secure and you're done, guys, you're not done. And we all know this. And it's not VMware's fault, right? It's not Microsoft's fault. If you don't have additional layers of defense, then you have nothing.
That's one of the famous sayings I like to quote. I think it was Benjamin Franklin, he that is secure is not safe.
Right.
Right.
And so, and my final thoughts are boiling on top of that, and that is that actually I think this may be a good thing because it's giving eyes where it's improving the product overall. I mean, when they do come out with patches this quickly that you should apply immediately, regardless, in the next code leak they're going to get even more. Maybe VMware is going to go through all their code with a fine-tooth comb and tighten it up and fix all those problems.
So let me ask maybe a provocative question. Given the fact that we can expect that all source code would leak eventually, or be stolen or compromised in some way, shouldn't everybody just open source their code to make sure that?
That's actually what I think.
That's a discussion for another time.
That's another call. But Boris, I think you're right. I got to go. Thanks, guys. Great call.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Veronica, for joining us.
All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.